I'm Jandalyn Gilagit Pascual, and today I'm going to discuss the summary of V for Vendetta. V for Vendetta, written by Alan Moore and David Lloyd. It is a 1988 to 1989 mini-series by Alan Moore and David Lloyd. It represents a dystopic future wherein England is ruled by the fascist leadership of the Norse Fire political party years after a worldwide nuclear conflict. V for Vendetta deals with issues of race, sexuality, religion, totalitarianism, and terrorism. Its controversial story line and themes have inevitably made it a target of both criticism and praise from socio-political groups. It shows us a dystopian world where political power is above individual freedom and people are oppressed in the name of unity. So here are some of the main characters in V for Vendetta. V. The novel's protagonist is an enigmatic anarchist revolutionary who systematically eliminates the leader of Britain's fascist Norse Fire government. V's true face is always concealed under a Guy Fawkes mask, wig, and black cape. V is a fearless, skilled fighter who shows an immense tolerance for pain, which he developed after being injected with a trial chemical at Larkhill resettlement camp. V often quotes literary when speaking, and he is a penchant for theatricality. Evie or Eve. Eve Hammonds is a 16-year-old girl who V rescues at the beginning of the story and trains as his eventual replacement in his fight against the fascist regime. Even if he had been an orphan and turned to prostitution, she begins the story with long blonde hair. Midway through the story, V shaves her head as part of a simulated torture to help Eve free herself. Councillor Sutler. He is a High Councillor of England, and he gained power in Cope. He is a dirty politics bent his rise. He linked to Three Waters and St. Mary's death, and he has large secret service and controls of everything. Mr. Creedy. He had of secret police called Fingerman. He is ambitious and ruthless. He knows for his black bags. He is a man seemingly without a conscience, for whom with the end always justifies the means. Finch. Eric Finch is a detective who heads the branch of Norse Fire, known as the Nose. Analogous to the FBI or MI6, Finch is the chief of New Scotland Yard. He is a rarity in government as he actually morally upright and strives for integrity. Later in the novels, Finch takes LSD and visits Larkhill to help him understand V's mind. The trip helps Finch free himself, and the novel closes with him deciding to leave London and live according to his own rules. Gordon Dietrich. He is Abby's boss. He is older man. He is clever but lonely. He invites young girls to his house regularly. V for Vendetta. Following World War, London is a police state occupied by a fascist government, and a vigilante known only as V uses terrorist tactics to fight the oppressors of the world in which he now lives. When V saves a young woman named Evie from the secret police, he discovers an ally in his fight against England's oppressor. So on November 5, 1997, Emily Hammond, an improvised 16-year-old orphan who has turned to prostitution out of a desperation to survive, tries to solicit a man on Guy Fawkes' night. The man turns out to be a fingerman, a member of the state's secret police. Evie watches helplessly as two more of his colleagues emerge from the darkness and announce their plans to rape and kill her. Suddenly, a mysterious cloaked figure wearing a Guy Fawkes mask rescues her, using tear gas and a grenade disguised as a prosthetic hand. The enigmatic figure known as V brings Abby to a safe distance, then blows up the houses of Parliament, destroying it completely and treating onlookers to a pyrotechnics display issuing from the smoldering ruins. V then takes Abby to the Shadow Gallery, his underground hideout which is fully of banned materials like art, music, and non-state approved literature. In the safety of the gallery, Abby shares her life story, narrating the sad circumstances of how she lost her parents during the nuclear war of the 1980s, which also disseminated the existing order and led to the hyper-oppressive totalitarian Northfire government that controls London. The focus changes from Evie and V to Eric Finch, a seasoned police detective who heads the police force, which members of Northfire colloquially refers to as the Nose. Finch scrutinizes V's anarchistic activities, relying his findings to Northfire's various intelligence departments such as the Finger, headed by Derek Almond, and the Head, managed by Adam Susan, the enigmatic leader of the organization. The leader compulsively supervises government activities through the guidance of Fate, a computer surveillance system that has cameras and microphones trained on the people of London. Finch investigation take a series of interesting turns when V begins targeting key members of the North Fire Party. He first targets Lois Prothero, head of Northfire's propaganda engine, driving him insane. Next, V pushes Bishop Anthony Lilliman, the highly corrupt head of Westminster, to eat a cyanide lace mask wafer after exposing him as a vicious pedophile. His next victim is the skilled Dr. Delia Surridge, a medical researcher. Dr. Surridge was also Finch's former lover, and her death at V's hands marks a turning point for him, causing him to reconsider his involvement in Northfire. Being a capable detective, Finch manages to draw a connection between all V's targets. They all serve as staff in a Larkhill resettlement camp. Finch sent Almond to Surridge's house, but V manages to kill her before Almond arrives. He then stabs Almond in the hall when Almond discovers his gun is unloaded. Dr. Surridge leaves a journal that divulges, at least in part, V's identity. Entries in the journal reveal that the V was an inmate in room 5 at the Larkhill facility and a recipient of her inhuman medical experiment. V succeeds in destroying and escaping the prison camp and is now systematically executing former Larkhill officers, presumably for the atrocities that have committed. Detective Finch sends his findings to the leader, who worries that all these seemingly personal vendettas may just be a prelude to a much larger, more crippling anarchist attack. V's next target is Roger Riscombe, head of the Mouth in the informal label given to Norse Fire's propaganda arms. V break into the Jordan Tower, forcing the Scombe to broadcast a speech urging the people to rebel against the government. V kills the Scombe and escapes. Finch is introduced to the new head of the Finger, Peter Cuddy, who goads Finch into punching him. Finch goes on a forced vacation. Evie Hammond, meanwhile, has been abandoned by V. She starts a relationship with an older man named Gordon, and time the pair come across Rosemary Almond, widow of Derek Almond, former head of the Finger. She was also involved with another Norse firehead, Roger Dascombe, after the death of Derek Almond. Now that both men are dead, she works as a stripper at the Kitty Cat Keller. The relative peace that Evie enjoys with Gordon is abruptly ended by Alistair Harper, a Scottish mobster being papped by Creedy, a member of the Norse Fire Party. Creeds need Harper to provide them with manpower. His thugs in preparation for an uprising. He is planning Harper murders Gordon by stabbing him with a sword through his door. Evie attempts to avenge his death by shooting Harper outside the Kitty Cat Keller, but she is captured and trapped before she can pull the trigger. Evie is tortured and cross-examined nearly to the point of breaking. While in prison, she finds an older letter secreted in her cellway. The letter was written by Valerie, a former actress who was imprisoned, tortured, and finally executed because she was a lesbian. The letter speaks of her defiance of the system and moves Evie to endure her situation. Evie's tormentor finally gives her an ultimatum: ally with the current regime or die by firing squad. Inspired by Valerie's example, Evie defies her tormentors. Evie then learns that her imprisonment was all an elaborate ruse set up by V to test her loyalty and provide her with insight into the pivotal incidences that birthed the V persona at Larkia. V informs Evie that Valerie was a prisoner in room 4, and that the letter provided him with the inspiration he needed to escape. Evie forgives V for the abuses she received at his hands, and V divulges the next step in his grand plan for vengeance. He has hacked into the fate system in his grand plan system and has begun to manipulate Adam Susan, playing with his emotions and mental conditions through a series of intricate mind games. Subsequently, Adam Susan has begun to go mad. He feels romantically attached to Fate, fawning over its statement like a splendor lover. The year is now 1998. One Guy Fawkes night, V destroys 3 major government agencies: the eye, the ear, and the mouth, killing a Norse Fire Party head, Brian Etheridge, manager of the ear. In the process, in a conversation, V mentions that he seeks to achieve a working revolutionary society that he calls the land of do as you please. But he has not yet realized this dream. He must that they are in a transitory social phase that he calls the land of take what you want. While of these events are going on, Finch and his fatigued Dominic Stone have been busy piecing together with clues from V's activities. Dominic comes to the conclusion that V has somehow managed to hack into Fate and has been manipulating events all along. Explaining V's supernatural ability to predict Norse fire movements, Finch attempting to uncover V's identity and get a better handle on predicting his activities, heads off to the former Larkiel site once their Finch takes LSD in an attempt to gain insight into how V came to be. His gamble pays off when he infers that the Shadow Gallery is located in an abandoned Victoria Line underground station. In the ground station, Finch finds a strange car full of flowers. V greets him by name and Finch fires 4 shots. Finch stabs his shoulder and definitely claims that he cannot be killed as he has an idea and ideas are bulletproof. Finch gave us chasing after V. Seeing the copious amounts of blood pooled on the floor, he assumes that V is now dead from excessive bleeding. V retreats into the depths of the gallery and dies in Abby's arm. Abby briefly contemplates removing V's trademark mask but decides against it, maintaining that V is not a person so much as an icon of their struggle for freedom. Abby then dons of different Guy Fawkes masks and assumes V's identity, continuing his legacy. While Finch and V are fighting for their lives deep underground within the ranks of Northfire's top officers, there's a jockeying for power between Creedy and Adam Susan. Creedy has been trying to compel Susan to make public appearances. As a show that they are still in control, his true intention is to expose him to danger, giving would-be assassins a chance to kill him. This ploy pays off. Adam Susan is shot in the head by a vengeful Rosemary Almond in retribution for the death of her husband and her lover, and for the miserable life that she has now forced to live. Creedy takes up the mantle of leadership after Susan's death. Finch proclaims that V is now dead. However, he pretends not to remember where V's hideout is. His experiences and discoveries he's made about V, Larkhill, and Northfire lead Finch to resign from the Knolls and leave following no one's order. The death of Adam Susan leaves a power vacuum within Northfire. Alistair Harper murders Creedy after having been seduced by Helen Hayer, wife of Conrad Hayer, who leads the Eye Harpen and Conrad Hay killed each other. Each having been manipulated by Helen, Dominic Stone assumes leadership of the peacekeeping police, forces responsible for suppressing the riots and patrolling the streets as a precaution in case V should survive and make his awaited public address. A crowd witnessed the appearances of V, who is in truth Evie. She announces that 10 Downing Street will be bombed the next day. She tells the crowd to choose what comes next: live lives of their own or return to life in chains. The residents promptly reply with an uprising and rush the police. The next night, Evie gives V a Viking funeral but putting V's body in the underground train full of flowers and gelignate explosives. She sends it to a point on the track where V said it would be black with rubber directly beneath Downing Street. She goes to the roof to watch the explosion, then descends to the Shadow Gallery, where the stone has woken up. She introduces herself in the way V did to her, implying that she will begin grooming Stone as her successor. The story ends with Finch walking north out of London on the darkened and empty M1 motorway. So that's all. Thank you. That's a summary of V for Vendetta. Thank you. Questions 1 to 3. Give at least 3 characters in the story. Second, what is V trying to achieve by committing acts of terror? Essay, 50 words only, 8 points. Thank you.